When you get a new smartwatch, the last thing you probably think of is how comfortable the display is. Phones, TVs, handhelds, and other screens are much more obvious to think about, and while you probably don't spend much time looking at a watch at any given point in time, it's still part of the overall puzzle that could irritate your brain over the course of a full day. Samsung phones are known for having the worst flicker rates on the market, but how about its watches? I've been using the Galaxy Watch Ultra 2 day and night for the past week to test this, and I came away surprised by what I found. Before we begin, I'd love for you to check out my Substack. I've got a summary of the video up for free, but subscribers can get the whole thing in written format, plus detailed images and raw data for my tests. Check out the link in the description to learn more. Now for the tests. First, let's check on the display's flicker rate, which is the most common source of discomfort for people. The ultra-bright AMOLED on the Galaxy Watch Ultra 2 operates at a 120Hz refresh rate and uses a 120Hz dimming rate as well. This is very uncommon for Samsung phones or devices, as Samsung often uses 240Hz or 480Hz dimming rates, both of which are known to cause debilitating problems in anyone sensitive to flickering. Despite what it might seem, the 120Hz number is more comfortable than 240 or 480Hz because of how the human brain works. This is backed up by many studies and the IEEE lighting standards, which I'll link in the description. Now, while the dimming rate is great on this watch, the modulation is pretty bad. Most brightness levels on the watch use over 90% modulation, and anything under 50% brightness is a full 99% modulation, with pretty wide pulse widths. The exceptions are at 100 brightness and above, where the modulation drops to a much more tolerable 45% or so. At normal 100% brightness, this display outputs nearly 700 nits, but this isn't the true peak output. Putting it in flashlight mode and cranking up the brightness via that app gives us a much more accurate look, where it emits 3,600 nits, a much closer number to Samsung's quoted 5,000 nits. If the modulation was even lower, we'd see the brightness crank up even higher. If you're not familiar with the term modulation, it's just the measured dip in brightness that occurs during every dimming cycle. The closer to zero you get, the more comfortable the display will be. 99% modulation means the display is fully turning off for a while before it turns on again, and since this is happening at 120Hz, your eyes simply perceive it as a brighter or dimmer display, depending on how long it stays off. Many OLEDs use this tactic to preserve color accuracy and reduce noise, and it's known as pulse width modulation, or PWM for short. Samsung doesn't offer any flicker reduction options or PWM alternatives on this watch, but I found that it was comfortable to use despite the high modulation rate. Historically, I've never found myself bothered by 60Hz or 120Hz dimming rates, so this does not surprise me. Depending on your sensitivity to modulation, you might also find this watch comfortable. Another hidden area of flicker is temporal dithering, which is a fancy term for a display that creates imaginary colors by flickering pixels back and forth between two colors. It works sort of like that color wheel you learned about in kindergarten. I can happily say that the Galaxy Watch Ultra 2 does not use dithering at all, something I ensured by recording a 480 frames per second slow motion video and then feeding it into a Euler scope tool. This tool analyzes the individual subpixels for dithering and gives me a flicker rate analysis. Dithering would have dancing or alternating pixel flickering, while my analysis here shows a uniform drop in brightness in line with each refresh rate dip. Because of that, I can tell there's no dithering present. As with any flickering, temporal dithering can cause debilitating pain in people who are sensitive to it. Samsung offers a number of other display accessibility options too, including color inversion, color filters, which can help people who are colorblind, an option to reduce animations, and another one to reduce transparency blur. There's no reduce white point or some of the other more advanced Android accessibility options here, but what's offered is generally pretty decent. Lastly, I ran a color spectrum test on the display and found that it's pretty identical to the output of other OLEDs, despite the subpixel structure differing from most OLED-powered phones. While there's no built-in blue light filter option, you can recreate the same effect by going into Display Settings, Vision Enhancements, then applying an orange color filter. The default opacity of 20% reduces blue light output a bit, and ramping that up to the maximum 60% opacity substantially reduces blue light output. You could also repeat this process for any color that you personally find uncomfortable, as they have lots of different options in here. Overall, I've been surprised at how comfortable this display is, and it's great to see at least one Samsung device using 120Hz dimming instead of the usual 240 or 480Hz headache fests. It still uses PWM the whole time, but at least there's no dithering, and a few decent accessibility options make it at least more usable than Samsung's usual flicker-heavy displays. Still, it's not going to be a great option for extremely flicker-sensitive people, so if that's you, you'll need to look elsewhere. If you enjoyed that video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.